Gephardt, and I'm the Director of Alumni Engagement. So I will kick it off to our lovely moderators here.
Thanks, Missy. Well, I was going to say good morning, but it's officially afternoon. It's so great to see everybody. Thank you so much for joining our Alumni Council sponsored Learning for Life panel. We are super, super excited. This is the second year that we've done a virtual offering like this during Alumni Weekend. So we're excited to see so many folks here. We have amazing panelists, and I'll let them introduce themselves as Jacqueline gets us rolling, but just a few kind of tech pieces. I see that everybody more or less has added their class year to their name tag, which is awesome. If you still want to add your class year, there are 3 little dots at the top right-hand corner of your picture screen. There's a drop down and you can add your class year. I've been chatting, and I should just probably say I'm Elizabeth Falco. I'm the class of 2001, and I'm the current president of the Alumni Association Council. And so excited to welcome you all here. If there are any tech questions, we're a relatively small group. We're going to do a little breakout room. We're going to have the panel discussion. If you have questions or comments, feel free to add them into the chat. If you like emojis, feel free to, show the love with an emoji here or there. If anybody has any tech issues, let me know. We'll try and troubleshoot, but love it. Thank you, Betty. Okay, loving the hearts. This is awesome. So to kick off, we just wanted to see who is in the room. So I believe we are going to launch a short poll. And first question is, have you made an industry transition in your career? Okay, love it. All right, it looks like we're about 50-50 split of folks who are saying yes. Couple have said no, and we've got 2 who are hoping to make a switch one day. Awesome. I think we have maybe 2 more poll questions. Okay, where are you on your career journey? I'm happy where I am. I'm looking to make a change, or I'm very curious about what might be next. All 3 might apply, but just pick one for the sake of the poll. Let's see. Okay, majority, looks like we have majority of folks are happy where they are. That is amazing. I will chat with you after. 1 is looking to make a change, and a couple, 4 folks are curious about what might be coming next. So you are in the right place. Okay, 3rd poll question. Oh, takeaway you're hoping for today. I don't know if we can answer that, but if you want to put that in chat, a hope for the day. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a chance to connect with each other for a quick breakout. So we are going to get into a short breakout room. You'll be with one other person, and we'll have 5 minutes. So please share the time. And the question for the breakout room is, introduce yourself. What has brought you here to this panel today? And not necessarily I logged in, I went to Zoom, I did this, but why you were inspired to show up for this discussion. And share with your partner a hope that you have for the session today, and we'll collect those and we can add those in chat. So 5 minutes on the clock. We'll be in a quick breakout room. Introduce yourself to your partner, and share anything you'd like in 5 minutes.
I'm talking on mute. Apparently I went automatically back to mute. So now I was just, hopefully you were lip reading me. I always love these little breakouts. Just really an opportunity to get to know each other. I also love just the beauty of technology, right? The beauty of technology.
Okay, well, I don't know if we followed the script, but Mrs. Fouts and I had a lovely catch-up chat. Hope everybody had a lovely dyad. If there is a hope or something that really resonated from your conversation, welcome. Please put it in chat. We love collecting ideas and hopes. But I will turn it over to Jacqueline to get us officially rolling here.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So again, I'm Jacqueline Massara. I'm the class of 1990, and I am really thrilled to be back here on campus. I am the Alumni Weekend Chair this year, and I was just explaining to Kara in our introduction, it's not my reunion weekend. It's not my milestone. So it's really just exciting to be back and experiencing this and meeting everyone. And as on behalf of the Alumni Council, we are thrilled to host this. And so glad that you guys spent time in your day-to-day virtually to join us. So we're going to just go ahead and launch right in. I'm going to ask each of our panelists who are experts in both their field and in experiential, transitioning, just to say a few minutes to give your introduction. So I'm just going to call us off if we can. I'm going to start at the top of my screen. Katie, I'm going to turn it over to you for your introduction.
Yeah, so I graduated from HB in 1999, and I've had a whole bunch of careers since then. I'm happy to say that none of them were total failures, and so I'm really good at transitioning from one type of thing to the next. So my background is in crisis management communications, marketing strategy and branding, specifically digital marketing. I then started a small business, which was a boutique fitness studio. And then transitioned into residential real estate, and have been pretty successful at each one of those, and I'm happy to talk about my experience.
Thank you so much, Katie. Taylor, can you share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Taylor Tamang, and I graduated from HB in 2015. I currently work for a woman-owned small business in Columbus, Ohio, and we do HR consulting. So I regularly work with organizations to sort of help them build more human-centered processes into their HR function. So that includes helping them write job postings, job descriptions, conducting audits and compensation studies. So I use that HR expertise and that experience to then turn around and support individuals with finding new positions and what they should be looking for, and telling them, the green flags and the red flags with joining a new organization and getting a new position. So I'm happy to be here today.
Thank you so much, Taylor. And Erin, can you share a little bit about yourself with us? So just a quick note, Erin, you are still on mute.
Yeah, I didn't know it went back. I went on mute. Okay, so starting once again, I don't understand technology, obviously. I graduated in 75. After I went to business school, after business school, I went to Wall Street, which was in New York, which was very interesting, as you can imagine. Very male dominated, very testosterone dominated. And then I decided to get out of that because it got a little boring, believe it or not. Same thing all the time. So I went into strategy consulting with a company called Bain and Company, and stayed there for a little while, and then became the chief strategy officer at a couple of companies. And then I decided that there were too many men at the top, not enough women. So I left corporate America and started my own business to do leadership development for women. And that was in 2009. And I never looked back. Although the first year I made $10,000, and I thought maybe that wasn't the best career move. But then I got Home Depot as a client, and everything got a lot better from there. So whatever anybody is thinking, if they want to make a job switch, I've probably experienced it. So
Thank you so much. And I mean, we could just stop there, right? Haven't we just heard it all? Like, okay, great. this is very inspirational. And so that was one of the biggest things I was so excited about, the level of depth and breadth of expertise on this panel and from each of you, right? So we really want this to be a conversation. We really want this to be an experience of shared learning. But we do have some prepared questions as well to add some structure. So I have to tell you, this very first question, while it seems negative oriented, I always like to lead with the strength-based question. But what we decided is we're first going to open up with, what is the largest barrier that you have found in regard to career industry shifts? Because oftentimes that what keeps us where we are. So let's just put the elephant in the room and put it right out there. So I invite the panel, largest barrier.
Well, I'm happy to go because mine might be controversial. But the biggest barrier is you. In fact, the biggest barrier for any moving up anything is going to be you, unfortunately. And it's self-sabotage. Like, I'm not good enough. I'll never find what I want. I'll never get there. It's easier to just stay where I am. So if you can get over that, think of yourself as, one of those Wall Street guys and just say, well, I can do anything I want, which actually is probably true because you're all probably smarter. I can do whatever I want if I put my mind to it and and just go for it. Don't self-sabotage.
Yeah, I would completely agree. And also sort of fear and finances, to me are the two big barriers, especially if you're thinking about a change that might involve starting your own business. So getting over that fear, everything that Erin just talked about, a lot of the times it's like a self-talk that is the fear and not an actual fear. But then to the extent that there are actual fears, I think that they are often financial. And so looking at how much debt do you have? How much can you do this without, if you make $10,000 in the first year, that means you need to have substantial savings in order to do it. And what is the equation that your acceptable level of risk allows you to do?
I completely agree. And I would also say, I feel like what I hear from people the most often is that they have no idea where to start. So what you can do in that situation, I think, is doing a lot of research, looking at LinkedIn, reading postings for jobs that you think you might be able to do to see if they're aligned, seeing what you might need to learn, if it's a certification or get another degree or something. But I think you definitely have to put the time in to see where you are now and where you want to go, to sort of help you get that plan together for what next steps you're going to take to get there.
I'm
And I
not a
think that
panelist, but can I chime in on one thing? So when I took this job at HB, it's a very different career than what I had up until this point. And I think one of the things that I was intimidated about is that I worked in the music industry. It was a very specific type of job that a lot of people don't understand. And even when I would tell people I work in a record label, people would say, "Oh, so are you a publicist?" And I'm like, "No, that's like totally different." And so if you're in kind of a specific career path that maybe a lot of people don't know about, it was hard to explain to people like what skills I have that I could then apply in all these other different careers, and fine tuning, just the language, like my role, how to explain what I do to people who don't know what that is. So I think that can be really hard for people when they're switching careers or switching industries to how do you take what you know and explain it in a way that someone's going to see that you're a viable candidate.
And Missy, I think, that was so beautifully put, because when I think about barriers, and then that I think is just such a beautiful flip side to strength, which is how do you yourself get into that mental space where you can see this skill set, this competency, and this group of competencies that I have are so transferable beyond just, I was in quality improvement for large mental health organizations. And there were other pieces of my competencies that I may not have been tapping into or tapping into in a very different way. And so how do you flip that and get that speech, that 5-minute elevator pitch, right, that you always hear about? But how do you hardwire that into your belief system? And so, Erin, you spoke to that. You can be the biggest impediment in your own way. And so How do you flip that script? And so let's dovetail into our next kind of focus, which is from a strengths perspective. What's one or two strengths that you see that have been successful in career shifts? And that may be mindset, we've talked about that, or it may be other things. So panelists.
So when I thought about this one, because we had these questions ahead of time, to me, it's not like my strengths that make any, like, it's like, you don't have to have my strengths to successfully transition from one thing to another. But I think that being able to be very introspective and have a clear idea of what your own strengths are, which is really hard, is the thing that can make you successful in transitioning from one job to the next. So if you're in a job now, you know what parts of that job you like, that you like feel like are easy, like the, like a butter knife, you know what I mean? Like you're just slicing through, and you know which parts of that job are more difficult for you or are more cumbersome for you mentally. And if you are making a transition and you want to ensure that you're going to be successful, making sure that that job is like butter is for you, not, it's like playing to your strengths. So as an example, I was in business school and the schedule on a daily basis was really variable, and I thrived in that environment. And then I went into a very intense corporate setting where the schedule is very regimented. And like that was something that killed me inside, and I was less successful in that environment. It's not really my strength, maybe, is that if it's about me at all, which I don't know that it is like I can do well in an environment where things change on a daily basis. And so I wanted to find something where that was the environment in which I was going to, and I knew that that would help me to be successful. And I think whatever it is for you is the thing to figure out, like what environment helps you to be successful.
Yes, my answer would be similar to Katie's. I would say be courageous enough to try something that you may not be good at the first time. I think sometimes I can shy away from things that I know I'm not amazing at because I feel embarrassed asking for help. But boldly going into things humbly and being like, I don't know how to do all of this. I know how to do some of this, but I'm making a career shift and I want to, broaden the skill sets that I do have. So being courageous enough to try something new and show up to people and say, look, I don't know everything, which is how a leader should be anyway. But having that courage to do that is good.
So Taylor, that's really funny because I wrote down two. Courage was one of them. I think courage is huge, and not to have that imposter syndrome of how did I get here? I'm not good enough. Yeah, and I don't mean to bring too much gender into it, but the guys do this all the time. If they're 10% ready, they're 100% ready. So, the other people you're around aren't any more ready than you are. A bigger one from as big to me is your network. So, think about your network, and we can talk a little bit more about that later. But in a job search, in sometimes even a functional area change, even in the same company, it's your network. I mean, it's not going to be replying to a job posting necessarily. It's not going to be looking on the internet if you want to change industries or companies. It's your network.
For sure. And I think, even if people want to put into the chat or raise hands, when we read a job description, how many of the talking points or the skills do you see and categorize like, yes, I can do it. Yes, I can do it. How many of us go, oh, no, I've not done that before, or I can't do that. And then we maybe overlook that role, right? And whereas being able to say, well, I don't have the technical piece of that, but what I have is sort of the 30,000-foot outlook around how quickly can I get up to speed? What sort of level of resourcefulness do I have as it relates to how do I seek out answers? How do I know when to escalate? How do I know when to bring other individuals in? And so I think so often we look at a job description with blinders on or in a very siloed approach, when we really need to be taking a step back and looking at those bigger picture skills that we have. Kira, it looks like you have a hand raised, please.
Yeah, I just had a follow-up question as we're talking about confidence, and you kind of touched on it with job descriptions. Taylor knows I ask her this question probably 3 times a week. But when you're looking at job descriptions, like I'm interested to know, how do you break down what's being asked of you? Because I know a lot of times when there's a lot of corporate jargon, there's a lot of like big name certifications and things that people are asking for. When you're breaking down, like, I have done this, or I can do this, or maybe I want to learn how to do this, how do you go about that? Looking, like, just sorting through the junk, like what's needed and what's not.
Well, I'm going to go back to what Jacqueline said. So there's usually a bunch of stuff that they write down. We want this, we want that, whatever. I would say anything that you have even touched. Yeah, I've done 10%. I've done that. Boom, you've done it, because you can take stuff in your background and beef that up. I'm not saying lie, but hey, yes, I've done this. Well, you're going to learn on the job. I mean, that's what most people do. I wouldn't worry about having every single thing they have down there. I mean, sometimes educational requirements, but some are optional, like they might say MBA optional or something like that. Okay, go for it. But as you're going through these things, I agree. Sometimes it's hard. You're like, this is a different language. So try to pick out a nugget that's in there that you say, okay, I get it. What in my experience relates in some way to that? Not that I've done this 100%, not that it's part of my job description now, but in my experience, yeah, okay. Even tangentially, I've done something like this. Fine, you'll be fine. You're going to learn on the job.
And I know there's a couple of people with hand raised, but and it's been a while since I've been in like a normal corporate setting, but when I was getting those types of jobs, I would say that you don't know what the job is until you're in like the final rounds of the interview. And so don't expect to know, like, it's like, if it's 10% sounds interesting, you apply, they want you, they're bringing you for the interviews. That's where you get to talk to the people who really work there, find out if they're happy, if they hate their lives. Like, what you really get to do on a daily basis is something you find out down the line in the process, not up front. So,
and ask the tough questions, and I'll shut up after this, but ask the tough questions after you've gotten the offer. Like, don't get into, well, I want this, not, no. You're selling yourself until you get the offer. Then you can find out what the culture is and talk to people about whether they're happy or not. I mean, Katie, do you agree? Do you know what I'm saying? You got to be a little careful until they want you.
the powers switch. They like give you
The power switches.
you, and you're like, oh, really? I'd like a moving
Yeah.
stipend. And
Yeah.
Liz has her hand raised. I don't know.
Sure. I just wanted to share, I literally 30 minutes before getting on this call, I was reading a job description, and I just want to read a little paragraph. It says, a note to candidates. Studies have shown that women and people of color are less likely to apply for jobs unless they believe they check all the boxes in a job description. We're most interested in finding the best candidate for the job. If you think you're a good fit, we encourage you to apply, even if you don't meet every one of our qualifications. So thankfully, there are organizations out there that are being really intentional and proactive about their messaging around hiring. So that's just a piece of good news.
And thank you for sharing that. I mean, I love that reminder. And Taylor, from your experience, is that, as you're sitting on that other side from a talent management perspective, I know not everyone has that, but can you speak to your experience around that?
Yes, I love this question, and I tell Kira this all the time because I talk to her every single day. But organizations are really bad at writing job descriptions and job postings. They have no idea what is actually the minimum requirement versus what they can teach you. So I always tell people to not look at it like a checklist, like everyone else has said, because they really don't know. Sometimes they're basing it off of the incumbent in the position. Sometimes they're basing it off of a job description that was used before the incumbent came in. So I think that is the case. I think that a lot of organizations are getting better at doing that. Best practice says that you should limit the amount of bullets that you're putting under the requirements section because of this study about how women and men apply differently to jobs. So as you're going through this and you're looking at postings, if there's 25 bullets under requirements, that may suggest to you that they don't know what they're doing in their HR process, or they're really early in their HR process, or, they're asking for something that may be not relevant to the position. So looking at not only those requirements, but also the title match. If there's 25 bullets, but it's a coordinator role for my younger graduates from HB here, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So look deeper into the things that you're seeing. That job posting and job description can tell you a lot about an organization.
And I think too, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because then using the interview to really leverage that opportunity to have that substantive conversation. In my early career, it would be like, I'd go into an interview, and even though I was like, oh yeah, we're both interviewing each other, I was like, oh no, this feels very much like, here, I'm gonna use, they're gonna just swipe left on me. Is it swipe left or swipe right? I don't even know. How does that work? But they're really just, I don't have a stake in this. It's just me showing and selling myself. And then as I matured in my professional career, it was like, oh, no, this is definitely an opportunity where I can piece this apart. So Taylor, to your point, where you get that sense, like it's detective work, like I have a sense they don't really know what a successful candidate looks like. And, you can sort of take that in two different camps, right? That's a positive, or maybe it's a red flag. And so then it helps me to just make more informed decisions. And so I would say one of the takeaways, and I'm curious to the panelists, sort of your thoughts around how to continue to inform your decisions. And so, Erin, I think you talked about networks and that type of thing. And so kind of thinking about consideration factors. So if you had to say 2 or 3 consideration factors as you're embarking on this journey, what would be the top 3 consideration factors?
I can start. If I was considering a career change or an industry shift or a new job, I would first start with thinking about what about my current role or my current position or organization isn't working for me. Is it the content of my job? Is it my manager, because they have a huge influence on how we're doing at work? Or is it my organization as a whole? Do I want to start my own thing? Do I want to maybe make a lateral move within my organization? I would start by thinking through that. And then, like what was said earlier, I would think about what my passions are or what skills I have now that I can leverage in my next or target career or position. And then finally, how can I get myself prepared for the new role? So all of that would be something that I would, some information that I would pull from research based on the kinds of positions that I would want to go into, and also drawing on my network, talking to people in those organizations, and staying away from Indeed and Glassdoor, because that's not true at all for what it's like working in those organizations.
Taylor, I think you like hijacked my brain before this meeting, because what I was going to say, and you said it much more eloquently than I would have said. So you can tell she really knows her HR stuff, because mine was just like, why do I want to make this shift? But yours were more detailed, and so I really like those. So I will skip over, the things that you said that I would say absolutely the same. So, what of my skills are transferable? And this could be to new industry, new functional area, and be specific. I mean, I ask people this question because I do help a lot of people with this that I coach. And they'll say things like, well, I'm really good at taking things that are complex and bringing them down to something that is understandable. And I say, okay, well, help me understand what functional area that is in the company. Because if you start saying that to someone, they're gonna say in your network, I'm not saying in a job interview, but in your network, people are gonna say, that's really great. What do I do with this person? So think specifically, what are my skills? For example, this foundation that I'm working with, the gift officers. Well, they have a transferable skill of sales. So they can go into any organization and be a salesperson. Okay, it's not a donor, but it's exactly the same thing. So, and I work with physicians a lot who want to do something different, which is shocking to me after all that education. But still, what are their skills that they can take to a company? Or, I mean, there's tons of them, but we don't think in that way. So think specifically. Hopefully Taylor would agree with me. And then what are my must-haves? So do I have to stay in Cleveland? Do I have to stay in a certain geographic location? And each must-have is going to narrow your net of what you can go for. Even if you say, I want to stay in this company. Okay. Salary range, title, is there a must-have salary range? Is there a must-have title? Would you take a lateral title because it's giving you a new skill set? It will give you a new skill set and leverage you where you really want to go. Size of company, culture of company, those types of things. So that's what I would add. And thank you,
Yes.
Taylor, for teeing up everything else I was going to say.
It's shocking that these HB women are like so brilliant. No, I think I want to like kind of tangent a little bit, but just to acknowledge that the limbo time is so difficult. I really don't like my job and I'm not sure what's next, and that the time it takes to interview, the emotional, like, I like this job, this feels like it has potential, this could be my next thing, and then like, even if you get the job, you are in this period of time where you're in a existing job that you have now really got a foot out the door on. And I think I just want to acknowledge that that is so difficult. And that it can lead to some really bad decisions, right? So
Yes.
like when we're saying like, oh, there's all these things that you need to think about, like, what am I good at? Those things can help you to then choose the right job. But it's only if you're not already in the headspace of like, anything would be better than where I am. so yeah, I mean, I just feel like I like Erin's message of empowerment, but I feel like I want to tweak that and be like, you are valuable, and it's oftentimes the place where you are, the boss that you're working for, that is not working for you. And so then approaching it from a position of more personal power, I think, can help you to make the right decisions. So.
For sure. And I think that you guys are all continuing to touch on that umbrella of informed decision, how you really lean in and lead this process for yourself, because it's this great opportunity. And, when we were talking in the Alumni Council around different topics and why this topic resonated so much with everyone, and hopefully with each of you as well, I suspect it does because you're here, which is in the current environment, the landscape of employment and career is changing and has changed exponentially. COVID, for sure, kind of set into motion a different mindset around evaluating, or in some cases, reevaluating what's important to me. And that could look what's important from a work-life balance, from culture, from a geographical footprint, lots of different things. And so now more than ever, individuals are making these types of sweeping changes where perhaps you may have thought it not as easy or something before. So we're going to spend some time at the end asking for questions, but I always like to take a temperature check. Open it up to the group. Are we hitting the mark around the types of questions or information that you would think is important and what you would like to hear about? Are there questions or comments or experiences that you'd like to share?
Well, I'd love to ask the panel because I've done a number of career shifts and I found it very difficult to do it on my own. So I have sought out coaches to help me. So I'm just curious from your and maybe the whole group's perspective, what sort of resources outside of yourself to help you get to that place of identifying those must-haves, those negotiables. And Katie, to your point too, sometimes when you come out of an experience that's less than ideal, there's a recovery period, right? Like you have to get your strength and your courage back, right? You have to reconnect with yourself. So just curious about some of the different ways and resources people have leveraged, different groups or whatever it may be. For me, it's been one-on-one coaching that I found helpful.
Well, certainly I like to hear that because I do a lot of one-on-one coaching. So yes, I have helped a lot of people with this just because you are an unbiased sounding board. because your friends, your spouse, your significant other, whatever, they're going to have some bias that a coach won't have. However, I also think that you can find somebody else who you know who's in a job search too. If you're going for the same job, that's probably not the best, but somebody who's looking at different industries, different functional areas, maybe she's a different level, a different age. And I remember one where, I mean, this just was so great because we were looking in the same industries, but she would have been below me in title. And so she couldn't look at the same things I was, but we could look at the same companies. And so we would share company lists with each other. We would share salary type information that we were getting with each other and just kind of egg each other on, because it's doing a job search is like no, 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 yes. So it's really it can be really deflating. But if you think of it as I'm building a really good network and that's going to help me for my future no matter what, there are positives that come out of this. I mean, I have made some really good contacts and friends from people that I networked with. But anyway, so I digress. But having a person that is going through it for herself or himself too, I found huge.
I've done it a whole bunch of different ways. So like I got the worst job that I've ever had without any help. So yeah, maybe not recommended, although people do find really wonderful jobs and career switch without hiring extra help all the time. I went to business school and it was really interesting to see that so many people going into a graduate school program were doing it to make a career transition. And so I think that not only are you getting some sort of formal training and hard skills in, maybe it's like a night program or something where it's just something that credentials you, but also Michigan, the school that I went to, has like ongoing career advice and help for the rest of your life after you've been in school there. So you can always go with like a one-on-one counselor, career coach who works directly for Michigan, but they work for the alumni. And so there's like resources there. When I made like the most powerful transition for me, I had already been working in real estate, but I needed to sell my small business. And I had been the owner of a small business in a very close-knit and powerful community on Capitol Hill for 10 years and had like a firm identity in that community. We had like multiple senators who were regular clients. Like I was a known commodity. And so to leave that for me was very personally difficult because I could walk around and people would like recognize me, and there was a coolness to that. And so then leaving that is very difficult because you're gonna lose the cool factor very quickly. I hired an executive coach to help me make that transition and to get the right deal for the buyout agreement from my business partner and I that I needed. And to make sure that as I was stepping into only working in real estate, which I was a very successful real estate agent at that point, or I wouldn't have been making the transition. But it's, instead of having like two roles, I was going to one role, and I needed to fortify that and make sure that it was going to be sustainable for like the rest of my life, to build a team around that. And so the executive coach for me was very, very helpful in that moment. I don't think that was like a normal job transition. I think that was like an identity change. And it was something where I like absolutely needed to hire someone, and she was very helpful. So
Yeah, and I would say a little different. Professional associations may be a good opportunity to leverage either in your current industry or in your target industry. Also, local organizations. I know there's Women in Business of Columbus or Columbus Young Professionals organizations that people go to sort of force that network if you don't know how to make one or don't have one. And then also online groups. I know HB has a LinkedIn group. My college has a LinkedIn group. My grad school program has a LinkedIn group. So going in all of there and just dropping a line like, hey, if anyone wants to talk to me about what they do for work, because I have no idea what to do, please reach out. So those are some options too, if you are not in the place where you want an executive coach yet.
Thank you so much. And Missy, I see that you have your hand up as well.
I do have a question. First of all, thank you for the plug for our alumni group on LinkedIn. If you are not in it, make sure to add HB to your list of education and join us there. I had a question in that, are there still like recruiters out there? I mean, I never had one because again, I think of the industry I was in, I think they tend to lend themselves to different industries more than others. But I know through my whole life when I was looking for jobs, my mom would always be like, you just need to talk to a headhunter. And I'm like, I don't even know if there are headhunters anymore. Are there headhunters?
Yes.
Yes.
I regularly
Um,
get calls for them and I'm like, I haven't had a real job in like 15 years. Like, why are you
Yeah.
calling me?
yeah, I think you have to be, headhunters can be helpful. They're working for themselves. So they have a corporation that they find jobs for, or especially the ones that are retained. So if you have a friend in executive search, headhunting, executive search, you can ask that person a lot of questions, and that person can be very helpful. But as far as them helping you find a job, if you want, go across a lot of the firms, Russ Reynolds, or there's just a whole bunch of them, and see if you can find someone who knows someone who's in one of those organizations. Reach out to them. It can't hurt to have them on your radar screen, but they're only going to help you if they have a specific search that you fit. And that's why I say when you're looking at these must haves, so let's say you say I have to stay in Cleveland or Columbus, they have to have a job that is in the industry that you're looking for, or a functional area maybe that you're looking for that's in your geographic area. So, getting some informal feedback from them, great. Having them be the one who helps you find a job, much more difficult.
Yeah, I also feel like, I mean, I just get calls from people and I don't know why. I must be on like a search or something somewhere because it doesn't make any sense. But I always have this weird red flag of like, if a company had to pay someone to find someone to fill this role, and it's not like an senior executive level where they really need help to find the exact right person, like a search for the head of a school, you would hire people for that. Like that makes sense. But if it's like head of marketing for whatever, I'm like, so this is a red flag.
Depends on how big the job is, though. Like head of marketing for P&G,
There you
they
go.
would use,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
they would use
But I
other.
think that's like a senior, I don't know, to me, that's a very
Yes, I agree.
executive role. If it's like, if it's
Yeah.
not that senior, it's like, okay, well, no.
And sometimes they have to, like their company mandates that, yes, if it's a senior position, they really have to beat the bushes, even if they know who they want. It's for appearances. So,
And I
yeah.
think too, right now, at least in my organization I'm working, I went from for-profit and I made a big switch to nonprofit back to my roots. And it's a tough market out there right now. And so being able to, and Taylor, I think from a talent management perspective, you can lend this too. We're using search firms for many different roles. And that is very different than what was 10 years ago, right? So I think that there's some definite different sort of a culture shift from that. But then also, some of the questions that we talked about with the panelists, we've really touched on, but just around that preparedness, what keeps you motivated when it's feeling like a grind? Because let's be honest, looking for a job is a job, and it has all of the social emotional pieces to that. And I think the panelists really nicely today peppered in that emotional intelligence perspective as well that comes from within. But we also want to make sure that we leave our attendees with some tactical next steps. And so we've touched on a lot, but if you had to distill it down, panelists, to one or two next steps that you would do this week in regard to this career industry change, where would you put it?
I would say that the U.S. Department of Labor has a website for career changers called the Career One Stop website. So that has a lot of information on there if you wanted to just see what people have in your target industry or in your next position. But I would also say, knowing that the job search process is a journey and takes a long time, I would say be discerning. Only apply to jobs that don't creep you out. if you talk to someone that makes you uncomfortable, everybody in that organization knows. So as much as as much as they're evaluating you as an applicant and a candidate, you should be evaluating them as an organization. So don't accept anything just because you were wooed by the process of being hired, but really evaluate if that's a good fit for you.
I have a couple things that are very tactical. So first, I would say um, write down your skill sets. Like what are the things that, from all of my experience, I can say that I've done. Um, so then I would create categories of, well, okay, well, these would go with kind of this job description, or these would go with that job description, because you're not necessarily looking for one specific job category. Functional areas can have nuances. I mean, like HR, you've got benefits, you've got, the ones who do all the recruiting. I mean, go make some categories of those. I would take an Excel spreadsheet and list 25 minimum people that I know that are in my network. And I mean, this could be your next door neighbor, because there are the people that are in companies that can actually help you get the job. And then there are the connectors. So they can help you get to someone who can give you an offer, interview you, or that are inside a company. So the connectors are great because those are people who know a lot of people. So really think, throw your net out there really broadly, and think of who is in your network. And you can even categorize them like, these 10 are A, meaning, boy, they are on it and I know them well. B could be they're on it, don't know them as well, that sort of thing. And then lastly, I would say build your story. What is, and I think, Jacqueline, you got on this, the elevator speech. Who am I? Why am I leaving where I'm leaving? Why do I want to go where I want, like for each category? Why is this so? What is my passion? And if you're looking at a specific company, if you're interviewing, why do you want to work at that company? They love to hear that. I mean, don't just go in there, well, no, go to their website, and maybe even go to their website, look at the people who work there. Do you know any of them? Obviously, look at the board. Do you know anyone on the board? Do you know anyone who has worked there in the past? I mean, use your network to kind of worm your way into the company, because sometimes jobs aren't posted. So as you're networking, and talk to everybody. If you're interested in a company, get in, talk to somebody there, even if they don't have a job. Just say, well, I'm interested in your company. I've had a company create a job. So you never know. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll get off the soapbox right now.
I think it's figure out what makes you tick and what environment you're going to tick the most in. Really hard to do, but it's a worthy experiment. Get comfortable with limbo. The limbo is required to make a change. Know that it's hard. Find ways to deal with it, but get comfortable with the fact that there has to be limbo in order to make the change. 100% the network thing. Go talk to as many people as you possibly can. When you do not go timidly. Do not go, I don't like my job, I'm trying to figure it out. Go with confidence. Like, I am great at these things and I'm trying to figure out what's next. Like, you don't have to have specifics yet necessarily, although gosh, it would be helpful, but just stand tall, throw your shoulders back, go with confidence, and give yourself some grace. Like, the happiest people are the people who are happiest with what they have. We don't all have to be the head of the world. And the life that we all want to live is not one that requires a CEO title. The people who are happiest in retirement are the people who saved the most. Like, it's like we can all do something that's wonderful for us, and it doesn't have to be what's expected of us.
Katie, I just want to, you mentioned something about negativity and saying, oh, I hated my old job. Never. That's the biggest thing. never disparage, your past, past employment, past employers, culture of the company, anything, you're not running from something, you're going to something. So yeah, that great point, Katie.
And really regardless of what your separation was, right? So we're in a day and age where there's lots of job separation today for lots of different reasons. And I think that that's really, it shows your level of grace in regarding how you walk away and how you speak about your experience, because that experience is part of you, regardless of what that separation looked like. So. Any remaining comments or questions? I know we're at 101. Well, I know
I'll
on
say one
behalf,
thing. Oh, I sorry, I was gonna say one thing. One thing that's I saw Stephanie, I think, put a note in about resume writing. I know one thing that helped me over the years was because I think job descriptions are terrible, and half the time, like I've seen job descriptions of my own job that I've left that I'm like, I don't even know what that job is, even though I just did it for like 5 years. Like it's just jargon. But what I've tried to do is look at a job description, highlight any of the big words, and then make sure my resume has all those same words in it. And I was curious real fast. I know we don't have much time, but with how AI is now, I've heard a lot about how people aren't even looking at the resumes now at the first round or two. It's just going straight through AI. And so they're just grabbing resumes that have those same words. So can anyone touch base real quick on that, on how AI has changed the landscape of resume writing and resume reviewing?
That is true. From an insider HR perspective, people are absolutely reviewing your job description with AI first. That's why it's important to upload it as a PDF, make sure the formatting is readable so that it makes sense when it goes through that software. But also know that AI sometimes can have bias built into it because of the information that it is fed. So if you genuinely feel like you didn't get a fair shot, reach out. Because, for example, if a position has historically only hired men, if you don't control your AI in the right way, it could screen out women's resumes. So just knowing that that happens occasionally, if you're really passionate about something, it never hurts to reach out to someone in that organization and say, hey, I applied. I'm really interested in this opportunity. I think I have the skill set for it, and see where it goes. But yes, that resume is definitely important. And I don't think it's a bad practice to model your resume after the job posting.
I have one more question on Chatty Cat.
On Taylor's
go ahead.
thing, what you said, sorry, about networking, if no question, if I am going to put a resume, drop a resume, I would also look at that company. And if I know anybody at that company, I would reach out at the same time because they can then help you, and AI won't matter because they'll get your resume to the right person.
That's a great point. My other quick question was, and I think this is very different for which industry you're in, but when does the question of pay come up? Because I have friends who, like that very first interview, they already know what the range is of the job salary. I have been on interviews where literally I have gone all the way through and gotten a job offer and we've never talked about salary. So what's your thoughts on that? And then I'll stop talking.
This is my favorite question. I love talking about pay and pay equity. The industry is changing. People do not apply for jobs unless the range is on the job description. So organizations need to be prepared to talk about pay way earlier than they probably want to, because I think sometimes they try to capture people in the process and keep them hostage until the end. And then they come to their external HR partners and say, we lost a great candidate at the end because of pay. And then they try to make sketchy exceptions in their compensation systems that are inequitable. And men, all of a sudden, for some reason that nobody knows why, gets $20,000 more than every woman in that position. So I would say you need to be talking about pay early. People like to ask you questions like, what were you paid in your last position? That question is illegal in a lot of places because it should have no bearing on their compensation system in their organization. So if they're asking you that question or what your pay expectation needs to be, you should say in alignment with the pay range and my qualifications for that position, because what I think shouldn't matter. You should already have what you're going to pay this role as. So why are you even asking me that question?
That's Taylor, exactly what I tell people.
Yeah. And then
Exactly.
also I would say, obviously, when you get pay, you need to be negotiating it. But just know that if your negotiation is successful, someone else was successful in negotiating. So how do you know that it's equitable across the organization? So I do get fired up about pay equity and compensation transparency.
And, you know, to me, I feel like we could go another 30, 45 minutes, right? We have an appetite for this because there's never really any place that we learn this. And so here's a few suggestions that I'd want to throw out there. I see Missy saying, hey, can we put some things in the chat? Someone just logged off and said, I have to go, but connect with me on LinkedIn. Wondering if we can all make some commitments around perhaps we can get an attendee list out to the group, I'm wondering, where we can elect to connect on LinkedIn. And then the other piece is that we didn't get to, which is just about a resource list. And I know, Elizabeth, you and I talked about this, and Missy, kind of curating a resource list, whether it's books or webinars or what have you, that our panelists recommend, but then also that each of us have maybe had experience. And so that's our commitment to you, everyone who's attended the panel. And so if that sounds like a doable next step and takeaway, and if there are other pieces that you would like, please do reach out, either put it in the chat here or reach out to Missy, if you could put there we go, that website as well, or that email address. But I want to say thank you so much to our panelists. As you can see, we really amassed a subject matter expertise across industry change, and I hope that this has been helpful. I really know that it resonated with me and even gave me additional ideas, even though I'm not looking for a career change right now, because it's great to have in our toolbox. So thank you to each one of our panelists, and thank you to each of you for being part of our afternoon today.
Thank you all so much. Have a great day.
Take care.
Bye.